The new season of Stranger Things starts with a storyline that feels very familiar and yet completely new at the same time. Just like the first season began with Will Byers going missing, season 5 opens with another child caught in something dark and mysterious. This time, it is Holly Wheeler, Mike and Nancy's little sister, and the show uses her in a way that instantly pulls viewers back into that classic emotional mix of fear, wonder, and supernatural danger. The opening episodes make it clear that something strange is happening with her, but it slowly becomes even creepier when we find out that Holly has been talking to someone she calls Mr. Whatsit. At first, it sounds like just another imaginary friend that a young child might create. But this is Hawkins, a town where imaginary things are rarely imaginary, and where invisible friends usually mean something much more horrifying. Despite everything the Wheeler family and the other characters have seen over the years, none of the adults are overly worried that Holly is talking to someone that clearly no one else can see. This part feels intentional, like the show is reminding us that the adults in Hawkins have always been a little slow to understand what is actually happening, while kids are the first ones who notice something is wrong. As the season begins, we see Holly giggling and talking to thin air. She happily describes Mr. Whatsit like he's some friendly character from a children's book, almost like the show is making fun of how casually the Wheeler family handles supernatural weirdness now. Holly treats this mysterious presence like a normal visitor, something she is used to. All she says is that he is kind, gentle, and talks to her like a friend. She never sees him as a threat, which makes everything even more tragic. And true to Stranger Things tradition, things escalate quickly. In the second episode, the Wheeler house is attacked by a Demogorgon, and during the chaos, Holly is kidnapped. The unsettling part is that Holly doesn't even seem afraid at the moment she vanishes. It is almost like she was expecting someone to take her, or she felt safe going with them. What makes this subplot feel so important is how it connects back to everything that has happened since season 1. Holly has always been shown as a quiet but observant child. She is the first one to notice strange supernatural shifts, like flickering lights or invisible movement, long before adults notice anything. In earlier seasons, she often stared at something unseen, as if she could sense when the upside down was leaking into their world. This makes her the perfect target for the supernatural villain of the show. At the same time, making Holly the center of the danger now adds a fresh emotional layer. It mirrors what happened with Will, but it also feels like this moment has been building for a long time. Holly has always been close to the supernatural without fully understanding it. Now, she is finally pulled directly into it in the worst way possible. Once characters begin investigating Holly's disappearance, the big question everyone asks is Simple T, who is Mr. Whatsit. Fans started guessing immediately, and the show cleverly plays with those expectations. Some viewers believe this could be a twist involving Eddie Munson, like his spirit somehow trying to reach the living world. Others thought it might be another new villain, or even someone unexpected like Barb making a shocking return. There were even wild theories online about whether Holly might be talking to some fragment of the hive mind that wanted to protect her. But the more Holly talks about Mr. Whatsit, the clearer the truth becomes to people in the story. Will Byers and Robin Buckley, who have both experienced different forms of supernatural manipulation, they pick up on details that others miss. They notice that the figure Holly describes as someone who talks softly, appears human, and tries to earn her trust slowly. And in Stranger Things, there is only one person who manipulates children like that, Henry Creel, also known as Vecna or One. Eventually, Will and Robin confirm what everyone suspected but hoped was wrong. Mr. Whatsit is Vecna himself, appearing in his human form as a clean-cut young man in a suit, hat, and pocket watch. This is one of the most chilling twists of the season because it shows how long Vecna has been planning his return and how he is evolving his tactics. Instead of instantly intimidating or haunting his target like he did with Max, Chrissy, or Barb, he uses charm and patience with Holly in a way that feels almost fairy tale, like he becomes a Pied Piper figure, a villain who lures innocent children away with kindness instead of fear. He hides his monster side, making himself seem like a guardian instead of a threat. What makes this worse is that Holly, being a child, has no idea that she is dealing with the most dangerous villain in the Stranger Things universe. Holly is not the only child Vecna is targeting. His plan this season seems much more sophisticated. He wants to gather children who are sensitive to supernatural energy, children who can see or feel things that adults ignore. Holly fits this description perfectly, which explains why Vecna chose her as his first target. The show uses this idea to give Vecna a new persona that feels like a mix of Pennywise from It and the Goblin King from Labyrinth, a villain who uses fantasy like charm to trap his victims in a nightmare disguised as a paradise. One of the most confusing questions after Holly's kidnapping is where exactly did she go? Is she in the Upside Down? Is she in a dream world? The show gives us a complicated but interesting answer. Holly is in a space connected to the Upside Down, but it doesn't look anything like the cold and dusty world we've seen before. Instead, she is trapped in a clean, A beautiful version of the Creel house surrounded by a bright, sunny forest. It feels peaceful, almost magical, as if it came straight out of a storybook. Holly thinks she is safe, protected, and cared for. She doesn't understand that she has been kidnapped. She doesn't see Vecna as a monster, only as a kind man who brings her food, gives her gifts, and tells her stories. The contrast between her viewpoint and the truth makes these scenes even more unsettling. Vecna creates this illusion to keep her calm, to make her trust him completely. He is manipulating her emotions in a way that feels even more disturbing than his usual violent attacks. This psychological method shows he is smarter and more determined than ever before, and it fits perfectly with how the show has evolved its villains over time. The Upside Down is no longer just a place of physical danger. Now it also traps people emotionally and mentally, blending memories, illusions, and trauma. Meanwhile, something else even more surprising happens. Holly changes into a new outfit. It is bright, quirky, and almost theatrical. She wears a vibrant yellow cape, a red scout-style neckerchief, and a blue dress that feels like a mix of Alice in Wonderland, Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, and a classic stage musical costume. It is symbolic of how trapped she is in a fantasy world. Holly is living in a dream created by Vecna, a world that feels safe and fun, but is actually designed to keep her from realizing she is in danger. Another major twist arrives when Max Mayfield enters the story again. Max is half trapped in this mental world because she is still in a coma in the real world. She appears in this memory, plays through her own connection with Vecna. Max becomes a guide of sorts, someone who understands how this world works, because she has been a victim of Vecna before. She leads Holly into the woods and explains that this environment is of Memory Palace, a mental prison shaped by Henry Creel's deepest memories. Many of the structures here belong to Henry's past, including the cave that Max now uses as her hideout. This cave is connected to something so traumatic in Henry's past that even Vecna avoids it completely. The show makes it clear that whatever he remembers from that cave is terrifying enough that he cannot go near it. Max realizes that this weakness could be the key to escaping, and she begins developing a plan involving Holly. But the season ends before we find out exactly what she intends to do, leaving a huge cliffhanger for part 2. This whole storyline with Holly sets up one of the biggest mysteries of the season. Is she the key to defeating Vecna? Is she the final missing piece in Henry Creel's past? Or is she simply one of the many children he plans to manipulate and eventually use for his larger goal? Stranger Things has always balanced emotional stories with supernatural mystery, and Holly's scenario perfectly blends both. It is heartbreaking because she's too young to understand what is happening, but it is also exciting because it reveals new layers of Vecna's abilities and weaknesses. As fans wait for Part 2 releasing on Christmas Day, theories continue to grow. Some believe Max's plan will require Holly to face something in the cave. Others think Holly might hold a special connection to the Upside Down that has been hinted at since season 1. There are even theories that Vecna chose Holly because she represents something he lost in his own childhood. Whatever the truth is, it is clear that Holly Wheeler is no longer just a background character. She is now one of the central pieces of the final season's emotional and supernatural puzzle. The way the show uses her innocence as both a strength and a weakness makes the danger more intense. The fact that Vecna appears to her as a kind, helpful figure instead of a monster shows how deeply he understands the minds of children. He wants Holly to trust him, follow him, and feel safe with him. His goal is not just to harm her physically, but to break her emotionally in a way that connects her permanently to the dark world he rules. This is what makes his new approach so creepy and brilliant. He is no longer just a murderer or a monster. He is now a manipulative puppet master. At the same time, the bond between Holly and Max becomes important for the story. Max, who has spent so long fighting Vecna in her mind, sees a bit of herself in Holly. She understands what it feels like to be trapped in an illusion, and she knows how easily Vecna can twist someone's emotions. Their scenes together are emotional and grounding. They help balance the fear with hope. Max treats Holly like a little sister, encouraging her to be brave and explaining the truth in a way that Holly can understand. The mystery of the cave is the biggest unanswered question of this entire arc. It holds a memory that Henry is too afraid to approach, which means it is probably connected to one of the darkest moments of his life. Maybe it is a place where he first discovered his powers. Maybe something terrible happened there that shaped his future. Max believes this cave could be the only place where Vecna is vulnerable, which is why she plans to use Holly to escape or stop him somehow. But the final episodes of Part 1 end before we learn more, leaving viewers to speculate until Christmas. Holly's storyline reminds viewers that Stranger Things has always been about kids confronting forces that adults cannot understand. Her innocence becomes both her vulnerability and her importance. Vecna sees her as someone easy to manipulate, but Max sees her as someone who can help turn the tide. And the audience sees her as the emotional center of this season's biggest mystery. The return to a missing child storyline is not just nostalgia, it is a clever way to bring the show full circle. As the season continues, more clues are likely to emerge about why Holly can sense supernatural things so clearly, why Vecna chose her specifically, and what Max plans to do with her. But for now, one thing is obvious, Holly Wheeler is finally stepping into the spotlight, and her role could change the entire future of the Stranger Things universe.